What's up, YouTube? We'll be going live in just a moment. We're just going to let our notifications go out, see if we can get some of our inner circle tribe to join the live stream. We've got a great show coming up in just one moment. Today we're diving deeper into our epic 6-minute squat routine, and this is a really cool little program that we're rolling out. I'm very excited to dive into it. We're also going to share a couple of really good insights into what we've learned about efficiency around stretching, and we're going to reveal one massive mistake that people make when they're stretching. All that and more coming up right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. Hey guys, how are you? In case we haven't met, my name is Yanni Baumeister. To my left today, I have none other than Dr. Phil White, our resident physiotherapist, physical therapist if you're watching in America, and massage therapist. He's replacing Rad.
Yeah,
how are you doing
Rad,
today?
Yeah, Rad's away, and I'm stoked to be on the more flattering side, apparently, says Rad. I don't know. He's trying to get all the help he can get on this side.
We got his good side, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So happy to use that one from him while he's away.
Absolutely. And today we're going to be going out on the gym floor first, and we're going to demonstrate a couple more of the movements that we've selected for our epic 6-minute stretch workout for complementing the squat. Today we're looking deep at the warm-up mechanism that we use and why we use it, and we're going to reveal the keys to a good warm-up in your workout, which we've spoken about before. If you've followed us for a while, you may be refreshing some of the stuff that we talk about. We'll get Phil to chime in on his thoughts on that, and then we're also going to show you another one of the movements. I'll recap what we showed in the last show, which I think was on Monday as well, before Rad got man flu and had to tap out. So if Richie's ready to rock and roll, We've also got a whole bunch of questions that we have had come through this week that we're going to answer from you guys, the YouTube tribe. So let's go. I'm on the mic, so if Phil wants to say anything whilst we're out here, he's going to have to give me a man hug.
He's standing uncomfortably close.
Uncomfortably close. That's right.
We're all friends here.
That's exactly right. So on Monday's show, we showed you two movements from this, and it was a little bit ad hoc. It was out of sequence. They were actually the two movements that flow on, and the idea behind this workout is to maximize efficiency as much as possible. What we want to do with these 6-minute sessions is remove the key and the biggest barrier of entry, because as Phil said on one of the earlier shows, the best stretching routine for you is the one that you actually do. And for stretching and for flexibility work, like strength work, consistency and frequency are key. So what we're trying to do here is create a series of stretching sessions that you can literally do in 6 minutes, and that way we sort of feel like we're removing one of the key barriers to entry, which is the time problem, the time factor. So what we did the other day, I'm going to show you how it flows on from here. The first and most important thing to do in any workout is to warm up. And the older you get, the longer and more important your warm-up should be. And the warm-up should always be specific to your workout. So what we're doing here, and one of the key warm-up elements to our warm-up in the UMS is horizontal running. People hate it. People wonder why we do horizontal running. Why don't we go around and use a rower, or go around and use a skier, or use a bike, an attack bike, or a treadmill even, you know, to warm up. And there's a very key reason why. When your warm-up wants to be as efficient as possible, and so to do so, we've got to cover a few bases with warming up. We've got to raise the heart rate, and all of those cardio equipment pieces will do that. We've got to improve or increase blood flow. All of those cardio pieces of equipment will do that. We've got to saturate the joints with synovial fluid, which most of those cardio equipment pieces will do. But one of the other key elements to a good warm-up is that we've got to take the body through body position and mobility drills that complement the workout to come. And that's what the horizontal running does. So first and foremost, when we do it properly, I'm loading up my shoulders. Now my rotator cuff are active. I'm even going into a little bit of protraction in the shoulder. I'm loading up my wrists. So all of the stabilizers in my forearms and my wrists are working nice and hard. This is a strength and mobility drill for the wrists and the shoulders. Now what I'm doing is, when I do my horizontal run movement, I'm taking the lower extremities, the legs, through the same movement that they're going to do if I was to do squatting. So horizontal running, whether you're doing a mountain climber, which is just that alternating movement, or you're actually doing the full horizontal running, most of the load is through my shoulders. So my shoulders are really working hard here in a nice strong body positioning drill. My hips and my lower extremities are also working really hard. So I get the benefit of the squat movement in my hips, but it's not loaded yet. It's not centrifugally loaded yet. And I'm also getting all those benefits from the heart rate going up, my blood flow increasing, my joints lubricating. So it's a real bang for my buck, efficient way of getting that heart rate up. Slightly better we feel than using, or much better we feel than using like a treadmill or something like that. Now, the next movement that we go through to maximize the efficiency of this workout. So we do 30 seconds of horizontal running in this 6-minute session. Then we go straight into our calf stretches. And what I'm trying to do here is just do a loaded stretch through my gastrocnemius. And I just alternate from side to side, pushing my heels down, getting nice and upright. The harder I stretch, the further down I go to the ground, the harder I can stretch them. And then I come through into the front and do a little bit of a soleus stretch like this. Nice and easy. Swap over to the other side and really put some pressure down through that front ankle, stretching out the deeper muscles through here, the Achilles tendon, getting a little bit of a dorsiflex in the ankle with the knee bent, which is a really nice way to obviously complement that squat. From here, we move into the ostrich walk, which we demonstrated in the previous show. So I won't talk about this one much, but this is really nice dynamic stretch for the hamstrings. And then we go straight into our test the water sequence, Cossack squat, step behind, back, test the water, Cossack squat, step behind. And we call that test the water. So you can see how those movements are flowing. We're getting as much done as we can. We're keeping the load on the body. Those body positions all complement the squat that we're going to be doing later on. And they're having all of those benefits to warming up. Like, I'm out of breath now and I've only done it for a couple of seconds. Let's head inside and we'll talk about what we've just done, so I can get Phil engaged in the conversation. Okay. Hey guys, we've got 6 people watching the live stream. Smash up the likes if you like what you're seeing, and make sure that you shoot us a comment. Let us know who you are and where you're watching from. We love to be able to engage with you guys on a more personal level. Okay, you're back onto the other camera. We're good to go. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, what do you think about those movements and the warm-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on some really important parts there about the the important things that you need to tick off in a warm-up. And I mean, I know from personal experience, when you're going and wanting to get some training done, like, often the last thing you want to do is spend some time warming up if you've got a short amount of time in the gym. So if you have a 6-minute session that you can get done before, then that's perfect, because just so common. It's just so common when I see people coming in through the door for physio or massage that it's they've just got straight into like loading up their body in whatever kind of way, and they haven't done any warm up, and that's a classic way to injure yourself. So
it's really interesting the transition that I'm going through personally with my body. I'm 39 years old, 40 in March. And I've noticed over the last 5 years a massive change. And the biggest change physically in my body is that I have to pay more attention to my warm-up. If I don't warm up properly, then I sustain some sort of an injury every single time. And it's really, really frustrating, because I used to be able to just do some, warm-up sets of a movement and that would be totally fine. But nowadays it doesn't suffice. It just ends in injury every single time. And the more I've studied it, the more I've come to realize that as you get older, the warm-up becomes really important. And in fact, the duration of a warm-up should align with how old you are. And the older you are, the longer you need to warm up, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the 6 minutes is a great place to start for this one, because as you were saying, it's all about honing on exactly the type of exercise you're doing on that day. So, if you're going out and playing some team sports, and you're going to want to add in something a bit different to what you're doing here in the gym. So this is perfect for just getting ready to do a squat, which, is what people are so commonly doing. So, hitting that specificity of the movements is key. And I really like how that, especially the way that, like, the step-by-step transition there, where it went, from the heart rate sort of stuff, and then slowly into, more of the, like, stretching out into the mobility. But an important thing to keep in mind there is, at no point was Yanni holding like a deep stretch and holding for a long period of time, because there's been plenty of research to show that for injury prevention and performance, it's key to make the warm-ups dynamic. So I really liked how that kept flowing. There was constant movement throughout, and you could see by the end he was sitting in that squat position chatting like there was,
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I did want to mention though with that Yanni touched on there, where he had the straight leg out the back for the gastroc, and then the bent for the gastroc stretch, so the calf stretch, and then he switched the leg up and put it into that bent leg, and you're talking about the bent knee and the ankle dorsiflexion there. Yeah, it's a really key one, and one to keep in mind is that you really do want to be stretching both of those calf muscles, because depending on how you're stretching your calf, you're going to really target the muscles quite differently there, and that's because you've got the gastroc going over 2 joints, and so you need that straight knee to get it on stretch, whereas then you really want to get into that soleus as well, because when you're in the bottom of the squat, you're going to be in a nice bent knee position, so dorsiflexion is really important to get that bar path right.
And and the way that I was demonstrating it there, by having one leg out the back and only loading one leg at a time, is really, really good if you can't sit in a really deep squat yet. If you can sit in a really deep squat, then you can just put weight, lean forward onto your knee and even add some weight like a heavy kettlebell, or we use a barbell with about 40 or 50 kilos on it on the legs in a deep squat, which is an amazing bent knee ankle stretch, you know. Great mobbing the ankle for squatting, but a lot of people can't achieve that yet because they're not quite flexible enough, you know. Yeah. So dropping the back leg back just helps to, you know, keep your posture, keep your back supported, keep everything supported, and you can really go forward and lean into that leg without putting all of your weight through it. It's easier to control, you know. Yeah. Omar, thank you very much for chiming in, brother, from New York City. Started mobility a few weeks ago and it's been a huge help with my joints. Tips for getting over a knee sprain. Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that towards the end of the show, man. We'll help you out, and we've got the best person on the show here to help you as well. Thank you very much for letting us know where you are. So I think we've tipped on the key insight today, which is really about doing specificity in your warm-up, and that's something that I want to really drive home. It's a drum that needs beating. When you're doing strength training in the gym, if you're doing sort of athletics outside of the gym or sports specific, you really have to make sure that your warm-up protocol is specific and complementing the sport that you're playing, and the types of dynamic movements should somewhat mimic what you're about to put your body through, you know?
Yeah, like this one that you've just done there, I was just thinking it's going to be perfect. I'm playing a beach volleyball tournament on Saturday, and for beach volleyball, it's all about being low, getting out into that squat position, lunging out similar to a Cossack squat, and then jumping. So you can really see how this would translate perfectly across to that, you know, sport-specific environment.
Absolutely,
so.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I used to play competitive soccer, I used to take the team through our warm-up, and you know, it's quite funny because the other team would be like just jogging and doing up and backs and stuff like that, and we'd be doing all these dynamic sort of flow movements, and you know, it would always get weird looks, but you get a much lower rate of injury when you warm up properly.
Yeah, I think you're a bit ahead of the curve there. That's the way that all the, you know, good sports teams are doing it now. So good to see you.
That's right, exactly.
Finger on the pulse.
Exactly. All right, so just to really drive this home, a good warm-up should do, the first three things it should do is that it should raise your heart rate. So it should warm you up, raise your heart rate, put you out of breath a little bit. Aligned with that, and in conjunction with that, it should increase blood flow, because we want to increase blood flow to all the extremities and make sure that the potential for muscle contraction is maximized. Then we want to lubricate the joints, and most of the joints in the body are a synovial joint, meaning that they have a synovial fluid in there that helps to lubricate the joints and make them function properly. It also helps to, you know, transport nutrients deep into the joints, into the tissues, and remove sort of debris and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like important stuff, and the good thing about this is you don't have to think about doing any of this. You just start moving, and it'll happen.
It all happens. That's right.
Exactly. So, but yeah, just important to take the time to get moving and really focus when you're doing it. Like, I think often the issue with warm-ups is people are a bit sort of switched off, and they just sort of think they just need to belt themselves for a, you know, go really hard, get the heart rate up without thinking about what you're doing. But I really like how this warm-up program and stretch program is all about getting those kind of movements right. So the way that Yanni was holding his shoulders while he was doing the horizontal running, like he's really focusing on holding and strengthening up that shoulder position. The way that the knees are coming out mimics a squat. All the Cossack movements, he's thinking about keeping the knees out. So I think, you know, all these physiological things are happening, and just exactly really spend your time focusing on the movement quality, because movement quality is so important for your performance.
That's exactly right. And the specificity is so important. Then also, of course, we want those body positioning drills that are going to complement the workout that you're doing. For us today, it's a squat. So everything I did was to complement the squat.
So I was a bit confused when you originally said body positioning. So do you want to just quickly explain exactly what that means? Because I was a bit hazy.
So body positioning in our language means that we go in and achieve positions in the body that switch on, first of all, the central nervous system's ability to sort of contract and reinforce neural pathways, all of that sort of thing. So at some point through my squat routine, I want to achieve a squat. I want to get into a deep squat just with my body, not with external load or anything like that. I just want to achieve it with my body, because in our opinion, if you can't achieve it just with your own body weight, you probably shouldn't be loading it up really heavy. I love hearing people that say, oh yeah, I can't squat well unless I've got 100 kilos on my back. And I'm just like, man, what that must be doing to your joints and connective tissues and structures is just, it's scary. Anyway, So body positioning for us is that. It's also about activating the stability muscle systems in the body. So when we do our full UMS warm-up, we also do core body positions where we do hollow body, side hollow body, and reverse into like a hyperextension in the back, just to really switch on all those stability, deep structures, you know, so that they're all really ready for the workout. You know?
So I guess like examples could be when you're in that bottom of the squat, you're thinking about the knees out, chest up, all of those sort of things.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you're starting to sort of send that message early on before you have weight on your back, because
that's exactly
you definitely see
right.
some people who only really switch on for their their final performance reps, but it's so important just to keep drilling these movements and focus on the quality while you're warming up.
From the very beginning. That's exactly right. Then our mobility drills are sort of taking that a little bit further, and that's where we want to sort of we talk about the concept of active range of motion and range of motion. Active range of motion in our philosophy means what you've got available at any one time with how your body's functioning right now. Like if I warm up, my range of motion increases, and that's what we sort of call our joint range of motion. Under warm, perfect, ideal conditions, we can go a certain distance. But if I just dump down into a squat straight away without the whole process of warming up, getting limber, all that sort of thing, that's what I call active range of motion. What have I got available for me for this workout right now? Active range of motion changes based on a lot of factors. One, how hard you trained already previously this week without a lot of recovery. It can change even by the season. In winter, we find that it takes us a while longer to warm up because the ambient temperature is a lot colder. And so our active range of motion can diminish. Now, if you're diving into a workout without spending a lot of time warming up, your active range of motion for the first set will be very different to your last set. And when you do the mobility drills in your warm-up, you're really testing your active range of motion, seeing how everything feels, and then you've got a better understanding of where to push yourself when you start to load up straight away.
Yeah, and it improves your efficiency of your workout as well, because that means you can be doing good quality reps from the first one. You don't have any of those junk sets where you just
that's
decide to
right.
Change the weight off a bit and do it again. You can hopefully be doing the good stuff from the beginning. So.
Absolutely. And so that's pretty much it, guys. Now, the biggest mistake, which we've spoken about already a little bit, is 100% that people are warming up and wasting a lot of time doing activity that doesn't complement the workout. And, this is the thing. You got to be very clear. A warm-up is not a workout. A warm-up is a warm-up. It shouldn't fatigue you. It shouldn't diminish your ability to get through your workout, but it should absolutely complement and prepare you for the workout. And so I'm going to say it again. I saw this a lot when I worked in the big chain gyms where people just go in and sort of go it alone and do what they know how to do. It was very common for someone to go in, throw their kit down, jump on a treadmill, warm up on a treadmill for about 5 or 10 minutes, which they're getting the heart rate up, they're getting the fluids flowing in the body, all that sort of thing. But then they go and dive straight into heavy squatting or heavy deadlifting or something like that. And the two don't marry up well at all. You get the heart rate up, you get the blood flow up, you get the lubrication of your joints when you're running on a treadmill, but you don't do anything to complement the squat. There's no body positioning there, there's no mobility drills there to sort of prepare your body for the squat. And it's not an efficient way to do things, because if you do it that way, you've then got to go and still repeat all the body positioning drills and the mobility drills if you're warming up properly and you're trying to avoid injury.
Yeah,
so
I think squats are it's such a skillful movement. Like, it doesn't look like as much to it, but once you really drill into it and you get get some good coaching in squatting, there's so much to think about. There's so much that you need to be actively sort of switching on. And if you've just gone and decided your warm up's going to be 10 minutes just belting yourself on the treadmill, you end up being tired and fatigued, and you haven't practiced those positions, so it really does not translate well at all. So I think a nice point of this, Yanni was breathing a bit heavier there, but he wasn't cooked. He wasn't like a sweaty mess. He was just primed and ready, but not exhausted. So
that's exactly
an important
right.
thing to keep in mind.
And I think that with any part of the body, it doesn't matter whether you're doing an upper body workout, a lower body workout, the specificity is key. And what you should be doing is doing movements, body positions, mobility drills that complement that, So an example for me is when we do our upper body workouts, I'll often trade out the horizontal running for a ski erg, because the ski erg allows me to go into full flexion in the shoulders and full extension in the shoulders. And so it just helps to warm up that movement. Today when I did my cardio, I did a little bit of rowing. We did a whole body circuit today. So I did rowing, because rowing gets both the upper body and lower body moving. And then I did some speedball on the boxing speedball to really warm up my shoulders, because I'm coming back from quite a severe rotator cuff tear. And so, I kept it really specific for what I was going to do. Even though I only did like a few minutes of that cardio, it was still very specific. And then we do all our banded movements. Anyone who's done our UMS Ultimate Warm-Up course, you'll know the warm-ups that we do. We have one for lower body, one for upper body, all very specific. Whole thing done in 10 minutes. And it covers all of those key areas, So that's the biggest mistake people are making, and I'd love to see you all make a conscious effort to start thinking about your warm-up a little bit more and make sure that it complements the workout. Have you got anything else to add before we move on to questions?
I'll just say that this little 6-minute session, it's great for a warm-up, obviously, as we've been going on about, but also if you're struggling with your squat position, then this is a really nice one that you can easily fit in on the days where you're not squatting, just to keep practicing those positions, to as a nice sort of the more time you spend practicing these positions, the easier it will be. So yeah, definitely perfect for a warm-up for a squat. But if you're traveling and you've just got a short amount of time to get some movement in, then work this one out.
Perfect. Okay, we've got a bunch of questions to go through. I'm going to answer what we've got coming up in the comments here. So Omar, tips for getting over knee sprain, and we won't go too deep on this. This is probably a good one to take offline if we need to. I'm a massive fan, Omar, obviously, first of all, we should differentiate, the difference between sprain and all this sort of stuff. Sprain is, in my understanding, like minor tears of the muscle fiber. Phil will probably go much deeper and explain it much better, and maybe even prove me wrong in a sec. But for knees, brother, I'm a really big fan of strengthening the VMO, at really regressing the amount of flexion that the knee goes through, so that you can focus on activation of the vastus medialis, particularly the oblique portion of the muscle fiber there. Strengthening the glutes, strengthening the gastrocnemius, because it does cross and play a role in the knee, and strengthening the hamstrings. And it's all about regressing back to a level of movement that's going to provide enough stimulus for you, but not aggravate the issue more. And that may mean that your amount of knee flexion really drops down under load to quite a low step up, until you can slowly start to increase to a high step up, mid-shin, knee height, and then back into deep squatting and things like that. Phil?
Yeah, I think the key thing here is to be pretty clear about what the strain is, or the sprain is, because the knee is such a complex joint. It looks like a bit of a hinge, but there's a lot going on there. There's plenty of different ligaments crossing it. There's, there's cartilage structures, and then there's muscles. So it's really clear, you need to be quite clear about what the sprain is. So I can only give general advice when you say knee sprain, because it's obviously quite a general sort of complaint there. So make sure you have seen you're in New York, so go see a physical therapist and get that figured out, because but the general takeaway, some general advice is start loading it in comfortable positions. So there's no reason why, if you're, as Yanni was saying, doing reduced range sort of strength work and it's pain-free, then that's a nice way of strengthening out the knee, because the knee, as with every other part of the body, which I've talked about before, is supported by active structures and passive structures. So maybe if you've done a ligament injury, so a bone-to-bone connection, if that's a passive structure, if that's the thing that's sprained and you're able to then it's really important to keep the active structures around it nice and strong and active, because often when people injure themselves, they stop doing anything, and then their active structures go to sleep and atrophy, it get smaller, and then they end up with a much more unstable joint. So if you can keep doing some squats and even quarter rep or less, load them up, then that's generally a way you can keep that going on. But again, go figure out what's going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want more specificity from Phil, then by all means throw a comment in and give us a bit more background history so we can dive deeper into that, and I'm happy to do that on tomorrow's show for you, brother. Quack, thoughts on when the pelvis rounds at the bottom of a back squat? Very debatable topic, my man. Usually, and most people believe that it's predominantly hamstring, but there is also some good research to indicate that the glutes play a role in butt wink as well. So I would be focusing on, stretching the hamstrings, improving flexibility in the hamstrings and improving flexibility in the glutes. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about where the pelvis is, you've got muscles touching at the back and the front, and then in your legs, and then up in your abdomen, you've got your abs and your back extensors. So you can kind of think about this like a bit of a tug of war, similar to how I talked about the shoulders the other day. But basically, if you've got muscles that are tight pulling one way, then that will lead to it. But also at the same time, there's sort of weakness in the other end of the spectrum. So for this, you're talking about tight hamstrings and tight glutes. Kind of, I think, I don't think it's too important to really differentiate exactly which one's doing more. Just, stretch them both. Like you treat your extensors as a group and stretch them if you need to stretch them. Also, a nice active warm-up where you're stretching them out a bit, similar to what we were talking about today, is a really nice way of doing it. But then at the same time, if you tight or overactive through your abdominal muscles, and that's also going to lead to more butt wink.
Yep.
And then you've got to think about the muscles that then do the opposite action. So your back extensors are a way of getting into more of that anterior pelvic tilt. So that's the butt wink is a posterior pelvic tilt. So anterior pelvic tilt. So your back extensors are doing that, and also your hip flexors. So that's your rec fem, your quads at the front. So it's like giving. It could be different depending on the person, but yeah.
I just thought of something that really helped me, Quack, with mine. Quack is very strong. I've seen his stuff on Instagram. I found I had a breakthrough, brother, when I had bad butt wink. In combination and in conjunction with stretching those two structures, the extensor chain, which is the hamstrings, glutes, I did a lot of horizontal isometric holds where I actually anchored my feet on a back extension table, Roman chair, I think they call it, back extension table, and loaded up in a horizontal position. So as to improve the strength of the passive structures in my lower back and also the extensors. And it helped a lot. I got up to holding a 5 kilo weight above my head in a pretty much horizontal position for 90 seconds, and I never collapsed forwards or suffered butt wink after that. But it was a combination of that strength work and the stretching work in my hamstrings and glutes that I think it was important to understand.
Yeah, so the specificity of that training is he's holding the lumbar erectors and the back extensors in a nice isometric hold there, which while you're doing a squat is so important that you got to be like your pelvis and your legs are moving, but then your back has got to hold this nice sort of constant like isometric load throughout. So yeah, you can see how that specificity of training then helps with maintaining that keeping that posture throughout the lift.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's rip through a few of these because we had some really good questions coming through. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Lenny Baxter's discussion. He's got a small rotator cuff tear and he was thinking about surgery, and I got back to him suggesting that I would never consider surgery with a minor rotator cuff tear. In my opinion, surgical intervention isn't always the be-all and end-all. It can leave you in a worse state than you even started with. And I'm not saying that as a blanket statement, but I've had...
more and more research is coming out to show that, compared to conservative management for so many conditions, obviously not all, there are some things you do just need to get surgery for, but it's so often that active conservative rehab is the same, if not better.
Yeah.
And a lot of the research is also showing that part of the reason why surgery does get good outcomes is it makes people take their rehab seriously. Yeah. And it makes them actually commit to doing 12 weeks of consistent rehab or strengthening exercises.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, definitely when I ever hear someone saying they need kind of a non-traumatic rotator cuff surgery, it makes me like the red flags definitely go up. Like there's so much you can do without that.
Yeah. Now, I do get he's come back and said that his doctor has suggested that he's got a bone spur issue in the shoulder, which is causing the tearing of the rotator cuff tendon. And it's a bit above my pay grade, mate, but I'm sure Phil can probably chime in on that.
I'd say just like maybe get a second opinion. I think just with surgery, like it is a big deal. Like it's serious. There's risks involved. I mean, you know, modern medicine is amazing, and you should, like, if it is indicated, go ahead. But like, get a second opinion, have it like thoroughly looked at. I would get a second and third opinion. Yeah. You know,
I'll give you a little bit of history, a background story, mate. In 2006, I did an acrobatic move where I landed badly on my shoulder and I tore the entire anterior portion of the cartilage labrum off the bone in my left shoulder here. And I saw 4 surgeons. 3 of them said I needed a shoulder reconstruction, and they were at that point sort of testing this new technology where they could re-anchor the labrum to the bone using these little sort of grafting hooks, and they wanted to do that on me. One of the surgeons, I saw a 4th surgeon who suggested that I do a rehab protocol first, come back in 3 months and see how it went. I then aligned myself with a very good physiotherapist that Phil White is also very good friends with. That was my introduction to Leroy. And I never got surgery, and my left shoulder is as strong, if not stronger, than my right shoulder now. Now, you know, I was very close to getting surgery done after the 2nd surgeon said, do it. I went to the 3rd surgeon, he said do it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go see one more shoulder surgeon and just see what he says. And he was the one that sort of said, oh, look, I don't know.
And I think more and more these days people are pushing that, like, try a consistent like training program before you come in. Like surgeons are actually starting to push that now, like good ones are. So and the thing to think about with this is, like, with your shoulder joint, you got your ball and socket, and this space in between my fist and my fingers there is the subacromial space. So your acromion is that bone that is probably where you have the spurs. So your active structures can do a really good job at positioning the ball in the middle of the socket. And so often with like modern life and how people's shoulders are these days, you have shoulders that basically, without going into too much detail, it closes down that subacromial space. But if you can do a really good shoulder rehab program, which uses the cuff really effectively, it trains your scapula to move well, getting that whole system working as that system should, so training the muscles through your back, and ideally spending less time in sort of shoulder forward postures, then you can really open up that subacromial space, meaning that, if you have bone spurs there, then they may not be as much of a problem. And the other thing I'd say is, if you're getting surgery to shave off bone spurs, the reason they started there in the first place is because of a dysfunctional shoulder. Like they didn't just appear out of nowhere. They've come because you have a dysfunctional shoulder, and the bone spurs are there as a way of trying to reinforce that subacromial space. So you clearly have been kind of, had a dysfunctional shoulder for quite a long time, and just getting the thing shaved off is not going to fix it long term.
That's exactly right. Now, I want to share, before we move on, because we've got a couple more questions I do want to answer, and we're getting some through now. Here's a perfect example of when surgery works and when it doesn't. Have you got the gimbal camera still fired up? No? Okay. So I had a mountain bike accident where I went over the handlebars and hit the chain cog on my shin, and I know you can't really see the shin. Can you see that? Yep. So there's a big juicy scar there. I don't know if Richie can zoom in on it or not. Can you see it? Can you zoom in on it? Yeah. Okay, so you can see a massive scar. I ended up having to have I'll put the foot down now. I had so I went over the handlebars of my mountain bike. On the way through, I wasn't wearing shin pads and shin guards, and I hit the chain cog and basically degloved, like I severed the whole front of my shin. The scar has moved around from all the different pulling and repair. I had 3 surgeries on it, and I severed the anterior tibialis tendon. That's what this is through here, isn't it?
Tibialis anterior.
Tibialis anterior. Completely. It was actually, they called it a 96% sever or something. You could see a tiny bit of a string of the tendon still holding on, but it was gone, And I had to have surgery for that. So I had three operations. One was to repair the nerve, one was to repair the tendon, and then I had a skin graft to put it all back together at the end because they'd opened me up so much over about a week. There was no choice there. I had to have surgery.
Yeah, it's
and
a
that's
traumatic
where,
injury. There's like been a mechanism of injury that has caused an obvious damage there, whereas
that's
that
exactly
rotator
right.
cuff.
To give you another example, playing football 6 years ago, I had a knee dislocation and ruptured my ACL, a grade 3 tear, ruptured my PCL and tore my meniscal cartilage. Now, after that, I opted for surgery, but we'd only just opened the gym, and so it was too early for me to just go under the knife and then be out from work for a long time. So I rehabbed the knee myself, built up the strength again. I gave myself 8 months before I was going in to have the knee reconstruction. It was elective surgery, and at that point in time, I was very brainwashed into thinking. I'd convinced myself that there was no choice in the matter. I had to go and have a knee reconstruction. I no longer had an ACL. My PCL was like a third or 2/3 torn. It wasn't severed. It was only a grade 1 or 2 tear, and but I ended up rehabbing the knee myself. I got up to being able to squat. I think the day before my surgery, I squat 180 kilos, which was a PB. So my knee was operating fine. I was running again on it fine. I worked extremely hard to build up the strength in my hamstring. So I was doing full body weight Nordic hamstring curls and things because I thought, well, they're going to take a hamstring graft where they remove 30% of my hamstring muscle, harvest it and create a new ACL, and I wanted the muscles as big as possible so that I could return as quick as possible. In hindsight, I shouldn't have had that surgery. I didn't need it, and my knee's never been as good afterwards. I've never been able to run properly without getting pain and inflammation. I can't change direction, so returning to soccer is out for me. And even sometimes when I lift weights, I get a really bad Baker's cyst behind the knee from fluid and an effusion, which is just swelling and fluid. So, I regret that surgery. The other thing is that since the surgery, my perennials on the outside here are completely numb. I've got like literally, which is very common because when they go in and do the surgery, they often damage the perennial nerve. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here in my knee that's just really left me in a worse state than before my surgery. It's been 6 years. I've done a truckload of rehab and it's still problematic, So there's two examples of surgical intervention. One that was absolutely important and that has been a real success because I can now move my foot again, and I couldn't do that before. And the second one was a disaster, really. Like it's left me in a worse state than before.
Yeah, I think with the ACLs, it's a really interesting one now where like they used to just repair every single ACL injury, but now depending on like what your goals are, then sometimes they decide it's better just to leave it. Yeah. So if you do want to go back to like change of direction sports, then it's generally recommended to repair it. But for so many people who that's not really a priority, who just want to do straight line running and training in the gym, then often they don't do it now. So it's definitely like with any surgery, just like talk to a few different people, get some good advice from not only doctors and surgeons, but also physiotherapists or physical therapists, and get up because there's just so much you can do without getting surgery.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Phil tipped on before about how the active structures in your shoulder will, if you train them right, they will compensate for any dysfunction going on deep in the shoulder, and that's absolutely what happened with my shoulder. Like the labrum is a really important passive structure, and it's also somewhat of a sensory organ that helps with the movement, and to have that so severely damaged, most people would think there's no way your shoulder it'll be compromised forever, which it somewhat is. But because of the amount of training I've done on the active structures in the shoulder, it's sort of helped to correct everything, and I think that's what you should probably be focusing on.
Mine's exactly the same. Did a similar shoulder injury, and it's just I've not been training much this last couple of months while I've just had a lot going on with finish off my studies, but now my shoulder hurts all the time. So getting back into training, I'm looking forward to getting pain-free again, because that's how I was the last few years since this 2012 injury. So
Now there's a bunch of questions that have come through here that I was going to give people a shout out for. Amir RT, Moving Free Norm has jumped in and given us some great feedback. Thank you, brother. You're a regular on the show. Angus Mayberry has put a really good question in here.
I'm going to get back to this one.
And Phil's going to answer you offline because we didn't get to do it today. Ferro, thank you for chiming in. Damon, how many sets reps for the J curl and initial warm-up exercise came through yesterday? I asked you, it depends on your training age, brother, and you've replied 39, which is your age. Your training age is the amount of time in years that you have been training under intense parameters, or you know, like how intensive has you been training been, and then for how long. Once you can give me an answer on that, I'll give you a better idea of your set, your ideal set and rep range for whether you're trying to hypertrophy or build strength. So if you can give me an idea of how many years you've been training hard for, then I'll get back to you with a more specific answer.
And training hard in this specific sort of thing as well.
That's right, exactly.
Not just bungee jumping.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so quickly, we've got on here, Omar Ramirez will check it out with a physical therapist, thanks, but it's an oblique area ligament that got overstretched, I believe. Okay, cool. I would work with a physio who can take a good look. I think that's really good feedback from Phil. Quack, okay, awesome. Thank you, boys. Appreciate your advice. Quack, wow, you hit a 180 kilogram squat with no ACL. Yeah, man. And that was just the start. I would have gone more if I hadn't got the operation the following day. Yeah, I maxed out on my deadlift at a 220 deadlift and a 180 kilo squat the day before I went in for surgery. And that was my plan, to try and build as much strength as possible. Okay, guys, that's all we've got time for tomorrow. We're going to bring this series in for a landing. We're going to show you the final 2 movements in this 6-minute, 6 exercises stretch routine for the squat. And hopefully we have Rad back on the show to mix it up a little bit. But if we don't, it's all right. Phil's got his good side, so he's happy with that. See you all tomorrow. Have a great day. Get your questions in. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.